Bonjour à tous, bienvenue dans ce nouveau webinaire Symrise dédié à l'étude SymShield qui a été développé par Symrise pour évaluer l'impact des différents paramètres qui peuvent influencer les systèmes de conservation au sein des formules et ainsi vous guider dans le choix et l'optimisation des systèmes de conservation. Aujourd'hui, nous avons le plaisir d'accueillir Bernd Henken, qui est Technical Director Microprotection EAME chez Symrise, ainsi que Coralie Casalet, qui est International Key Account Manager chez Symrise également. Si vous avez des questions, n'hésitez pas à les poser au fur et à mesure dans le chat. Nous prendrons le temps d'y répondre à la fin de la présentation. Enfin, sachez que le webinaire est enregistré. Il sera donc disponible en replay. Bernd, the floor is yours.
Okay, good. Thank you very much, Agathe. Yes, welcome everyone to this webinar this morning on an exciting topic called SymShield. My name is Bernd Henken. I'm the technical director at Symrise since 6 years in the company. I'm in charge of all kind of technical support, technical questions, and also happy to present to you this program. But then also we can answer to some questions after the sessions if you have any. I apologize, my French is not good enough to do this presentation in your native language, so I prefer English. I hope this is fine for you. So, starting with a quick introduction, sorry about this. So we are talking about multifunctional ingredients mainly and how to optimize the use of multifunctional ingredients. And this is why Symrise was setting up a program called SymShield, and we call it Multifunctionals Empowered. It's to optimize the performance. And here I'm presenting to you within the next about, let's say 30 minutes, 35 minutes, roughly, an extract of the full program that we have conducted over the last years. Before going into the program, I first wanted to present to you the developments, the trends in preservation in the cosmetic industry. What you see here is, let's say, results from Mintel. It's from Mintel database where we see the product launches over the last years, indicated here globally. It's global product launches. And we see also by percentage the numbers of ingredients that have been used for the protection of cosmetics. And you see all the colorful circles indicating what kind of preservatives or ingredients are in the trend. What we see, first of all, is more on the left side that the traditional preservatives like isothiazolinones, formaldehyde donors, and parabens are on a negative trend. Not surprising, because there's a lot of public pressure on these ingredients. So they are used less and less by the industries. What is then mostly used at the moment is aromatic alcohols and organic acids, mostly in combination to protect cosmetics. What we see further on the right part of this diagram is what is growing the most, what is more and more used in cosmetics to prevent from microbiological spoilage. And this is where we see multifunctional ingredients. None of these are listed preservatives. So there's a clear trend to go away from what we see on Annex 5 of the European Cosmetic Regulation. And there's much more multifunctional ingredients used, so-called multifunctionals. So we don't call them preservatives, and we are talking about product protection in this case. And this is also exactly where Symrise has lots of expertise, because we are even manufacturing all these ingredients and we use them in our own formulations and offering these kind of solutions. So what you see on the right is the focus of the presentation today and exactly how to optimize the use. So this was a brief introduction. What I'm now showing you, it's about multifunctionals and the program of SymShield. So first of, oops, sorry, the turning of pages is a bit slow on my computer this morning. Sorry for this. This is an overview. This is what we call a toolbox. So this is what we are using as ingredients to protect formulations without any preservatives. So what you see on this overview, on the left, you see products. And in the next column, you see the INCIs. You see the ingredients, what we use for the protection of modern cosmetics. And there is no listed preservatives. We are using these multifunctionals in combinations. On the next page, I just like to show you an example why we are using combinations. These multifunctional ingredients, they are somehow at some point antimicrobial, and this is what is known since long. However, using one ingredient, like in the first challenge test result that you see on the left, you see hexanediol, 1,2-hexanediol as a multifunctional ingredient, just used at 1.5% in this anionic emulsion. And we see it provides limited protection only. So it cannot protect the full against the full spectrum of microorganisms in a challenge test by only using such an ingredient on its own. Using another one, which is an antioxidant, the SymSafe-H is hydroxyacetophenone at a level of 1% also means it shows a good efficacy here, but on the other hand, it is already a maximum of water solubility, 1% the dosage, and it's also rather, let's say, on a high price level if you dose this on this at 1%. So the secret is exactly to make combinations of those, making combinations of different kinds of antimicrobial substances, multifunctional ingredients, in order to protect such formulations. So this is just one example, but this is what we do on our daily basis. We recommend these kind of combinations to find optimum protection for each individual formulation in cosmetics nowadays. Now, the SymShield program exactly is pointing on this subject, is exactly explaining how to optimize, how to fine-tune now the use of such multifunctional ingredients. There's a trend in the industry called minimalism, using less ingredients, but having more features, more benefits in the final formulation. And this is exactly the function of multifunctional ingredients. With less ingredients, we reduce the INCI list, we reduce also development times, we reduce inventories, and we see less impacts on the environment. So there's several benefits when using multifunctional ingredients under the headline of minimalism. In this study of SymShield, now I'm showing you a few examples where we were looking into, there's a lot of theoretical barriers in cosmetics responsible for the growth of microorganisms. We were looking into these kind of barriers on, for example, the pH impact or chelating agents, emulsifiers, and water activity. These parameters have a significant impact on the growth of microorganisms, and by that, it's important to understand and to analyze more the details of these impacts in order to optimize the protection of formulations. So this is, let's say, the base of this study. Here we used quite a lot of different kinds of multifunctional ingredients, starting from pentylene glycol up to caprylyl glycol, for example. So different chain lengths of alkandiols, but also hydroxyacetophenone in combinations. So this is the ingredients that we have used for this study, for this program. And now let's have a look into results. The first parameter I wanted to show is about the pH. We know that the pH has several impacts on, for example, emulsions. It's about stability. So then also it's about the function of certain ingredients. If you have extreme pH, of course, you have skin irritation potentials, sensory properties might be affected. But also the pH plays a very important role when it comes to the growth of microorganisms. Just sorry, my computer is a bit slow in paging. Turning the pages. So here you see on the next page. This is now from the very left to very acidic pH to the very right. It's very highly alkaline pH. On the bottom, you see, of course, you have skin irritation potentials. But what we also know is that there is really differences in the growth of microorganisms looking into the pH. normally bacteria, they prefer a more neutral to slight acidic environment, whereas yeast and mold, they prefer to have a more acidic environment. So depending on the pH, there might be different susceptibilities already on the growth of microorganisms in your formulation. Since we have most cosmetics somewhere between, let's say, 4.5 and 6, some are up to 7, the study was investigating the impacts of the pH between 4.5 and 6 in this case. Here you see just the formulation that we have used for this study on pH. It's an oil and water emulsion, and we have done challenge tests at different pH, starting from 4.5 up to 6 and doing 0.5 increments between the pH. Now, what you see here right now is a lot of challenge test results, a lot of diagrams. We used the European Pharmacopoeia protocol for this study. And what you see is on the first row, there is 5% only pentylene glycol, our hydrolyte 5 green, applied. What does it mean? Hydrolyte 5 green is quite highly effective, quite effective against bacteria, but less against yeast and mold. So if you want to have full protection, you need to add something. But this is not the purpose of this analysis. The purpose is exactly to see what is the impact of pH on one ingredient. And here we use pentylene glycol 5% and 3%, so 3 different dosages. And we have adjusted the pH from the left from 6 to 4.5 on the very right. What we see already at 3% dosage of pentylene glycol that having a more and more acidic pH means a difference in the challenge test result. So we can adjust, we can impact a challenge test result simply by adding or adjusting different pH. So becoming more acidic means we have less growth of bacteria, so we can fine-tune with the pH the efficacy of such antimicrobial ingredients, of pentylene glycol in this case. The same is at 5%. Now here's another example, just to show that it's not only depending on the, sorry, this was too fast. Not only depending on the chain length of the alkandiol. Here we have the C7 chain length alkandiol, the hydrolyte 7 green, and also at 2 different concentrations, only using this ingredient, we can see that with an increase with a decrease of pH, we see that there is less growth of microorganisms. That tells us we can also adjust with this alkandiol the growth of microorganisms. We can impact the growth of microorganisms by adjusting the pH. Another example I'm showing is with our hydroxyacetophenone that is also widely used, particularly in combination also with alkandiols, but here we have used 2% of the SymSafe H using 0.5 and 0.2%, and we see already at 0.2% that there's an impact by the pH on the growth of microorganisms when adjusting the pH in this emulsion. So it's really a dose-depending effect, but on the other hand, we can see, and this tells us the pH can be one of the parameters in order to pass a challenge test if you fine-tune your formulation. So having said that, pH is an important impact on the growth of microorganisms and also for the protection of your formulation. So we see that we have an increasing protection at lower pH. It's dose depending, and we can really enhance product protection against bacteria achieved by these ingredients. So that is one parameter by this study. Looking into another example, it's about chelating agents. We know that chelating agents, they have properties to inactivate metal ions to make emulsions more stable by that, and also metal ions are, let's say, metal ions are required as enzyme cofactors to maintain integrity of bacteria cell walls. So they have an impact. They can impact the stability of bacteria cells. Most commonly, of course, is EDTA, so this is widely used, and we compared with EDTA, but also we used other chelating agents, which are more biodegradable, which are more often used nowadays. So, for example, we don't use EDTA any longer because also of some pressure, some concerns, and we use sodium gluconate in our labs, for example, as a common complexing agent. So in this study, we have used several complexing agents, but here we have the formulation that we tested. So we evaluated different chelating agents on the antimicrobial efficacy of multifunctionals in combination. And also we used Symdiol 68, 0.5%. This is a combination of a C6 and C8 alcan diol, which provides good efficacy against bacteria, yeast, and mold. So what we see here first is using 0.5% of the Symdiol 68 at 2 different pHs using EDTA. So what we see in the first graph on the top left is EDTA on its own. There's almost no protection. When we use Symdiol 68, we see quite good protection, but there's still some gaps, of course. But the meaning here is now having a combination of EDTA and Symdiol 68 is even performing slightly better using this kind of combination. So that means using multifunctional ingredients can be optimized with the use of complexing agents. We have done the same at slightly lower pH. This was the result at pH 5.5, but also at pH 5, we see some differences. So exactly when you have a borderline result from a challenge test, you can optimize probably the efficacy of your product protection combination by using a complexing agent. So this was with EDTA, and now we are looking into another example. This is with the sodium gluconate. Also, the sodium gluconate on its own is not effective or not significantly effective against bacteria. We see again the same result for the Symdiol 68, but when combining both Symdiol 68 plus sodium gluconate, also we get quite significant improvements when only using the multifunctional ingredient. This is especially at higher pH, or let's say at skin neutral pH 5.5, visible from the results that we achieved. We have very similar results also from the other complexing agent, but just to summarize here, using complexing agents can significantly improve or contribute to the protection of your formulation. Now looking into another category, this is about emulsifying agents. Also, when we are talking about multi-phase systems like emulsions, we have hydrophilic, lipophilic phases that are normally dispersed. And emulsifiers, they have, emulsifiers have complex interactions with other ingredients in the formulation. This is important with regards to stability. So you need to select them properly, carefully, and but also some of them really can contribute to product protection. And I show you a few examples. So for this study also we have used, just waiting for the next slide. I hope it's not because of the stormy weather that we have this morning. Yeah, here it is. So talking about emulsifying agents, here we see that depending on the system, either it's a water and oil formulation you see on the left, relatively easy to protect. From the technical perspective, I would say, well, it's also challenging. It's not really easy, but it's maybe compared to oil and water emulsions, a little bit less challenging. This is how I would call it. So in this part also you see oil and water emulsions, either cationic, anionic, or non-ionic. We have increasing challenges in order to stabilize this. And this means also in this program, we have analyzed the impacts of emulsifiers on the, let's say, on the efficacy of multifunctional ingredients, on the stability against microorganisms. So here we see in the from the test protocol, we have used an anionic oil and water emulsion, as they are amongst the most difficult ones for the anionic emulsion. You see the formulation on the right, and we have used, and what you see in the middle, different kind of inkies, different emulsifiers, and we have done challenge testing using different alkandiols, also using hydroxyacetophenone. So these are all multifunctional ingredients, no preservatives, no listed preservatives, in order to study impacts by the emulsifying agent. The challenge tests have been done at a pH of 5.5. And again, I would like to share with you several results from challenge tests. And we have used, in this case, in this example, only 0.3% of the hydrolyte 5 green, the pentylene glycol, and we have used 2% of an emulsifying agent. And what we see here is different challenge test results. So only changing the emulsifiers at the same level shows impacts on the growth of microorganisms. And especially in this case, the best result was achieved by using sodium stearyl-glutamate. So this emulsifying agent was performing at the best. But it's just showing, this is important to show that the type of emulsifying agent can have an impact on the stability of your formulation. So looking into another example, this is the hydrolyte 8 green. This is the Ca chain length alkandiol, the 1,2-octanediol or caprylyl-glycol. Only this ingredient plus 2% of an emulsifying agent. And we see here that from the different results that anionic emulsifiers have a more positive impact. And again, it was also here the sodium stearyl-glutamate has the greatest effect on contributing to the protection of your formulation. So this is another important parameter when looking into the protection of formulations. And just as a summary, we have seen that anionic emulsifiers have more positive effects. It doesn't mean it works always, but it shows that by these examples that there is a greater potential of selecting also the most suitable emulsifying agent to improve the protection of formulations. This is the next subject I wanted to share with you. It's about the water activity. We know that the water activity has, by definition, also impact on the growth of microorganisms. So you can measure the partial vapor pressure of water in formulations versus its standard partial vapor pressure of water. So this is the ratio, the water activity. And we know that unbound water in the formulation is available to support the growth of microorganisms. So the higher the level of the active water content, the higher the level of active water, the higher is the risk for microbiological contamination. So what you see, what is known from literature is quite when we have, let's say, ratios below 0.6 of the active water level, it's normally confirmed to be riskless. So without any growth of microorganisms, I'm always a bit careful from the technical point, but we also have these kind of parameters for bacteria or molds, but we know that most of the cosmetic formulations, they have active water levels much higher than this. So bacteria, yeast, and mold have an excellent platform to grow, in particularly when you have high water containing formulations. For example, wet wipes, they have more than 90% of water quite often, and this can increase the risk of microbiological growth. So what is the idea here of this study, of this investigation, is also to see what kind, excuse me, what kind of impacts can the active water level have on a challenge test result. And by this, we were using another oil and water emulsion. You see the formulation on the right-hand side. And we are working with different multifunctionals here. And we are also playing a little bit with the glycerine content, known to bound water, known to reduce the active water level. So we were measuring the dew point with the help of cooled mirrors using Aqualab. This, you see the model here, and we did a challenge test. with these examples in order to see what actually happens in such test protocols using such ingredients or trying to impact the active water content. Now, what you see here is the measurement of the active water level. So of this emulsion, we have the placebo, of course, first of all. And then we see when we add different levels of glycerine, we are reducing the active water level. So glycerine helps to bound water in this case. What we have tested also, what happens if we add pentylene glycol? So pentylene glycol, here we see combinations like using 5% of the pentylene glycol on its own. It's not reducing active water level. But then using combinations, 3% of 3% of pentylene glycol plus 20% of glycerine is significantly reducing the active water level. We have even optimized this a bit using 5% hydrolyte 5 green, so pentylene glycol at 5% plus 20% of glycerine, and both is mostly, or it's reducing active water levels on the highest content. So this was the maximum. We normally do not recommend to exceed 5% pentylene glycol in formulations due to costs and also due to stabilities. But using 5% is a realistic concentration. What we analyzed as well is about the other alcan diols. So with an increasing chain length, we wanted to see if there is a similar or comparable level of reduction in the active water level. And you can see here, we have used versus pentylene glycol, we have tested the hexane diol, the octane diol, the heptane diol. They all reduce at some stage the active water level, but it's not the same like pentylene glycol. So the highest level of water reduction we found with the pentylene glycol. Now let's have a look into challenge test results here. Using 5% of pentylene glycol alone in this oil and water emulsion means that there is some efficacy. The same is also when only using glycerine at 20%, we see there is some reduction, but we see combinations with 1% glycerine, only slight change, but then using 20% glycerine plus 5% of the pentylene glycol is reducing significantly the growth of microorganisms. So you just, in this case, you only need something which is effective against Aspergillus on top, and then you have already a good solution to protect your formulation to your emulsion. So this tells us that 1% glycerine when combined with hydrolyte 5 green has no noticeable influence, but using 20% in combination with the pentylene glycol acts really as a good and effectively broad spectrum protection. So again, this is another parameter, the water activity, in order to significantly reduce susceptibilities of formulation versus microbial growth, and by that to optimize the protection system for your individual formulation. So here we just have summarized the results. So higher concentrations of glycerine in combination with, for example, pentylene glycol, but also with the other glycols, we see that there is reduction of active water content, and by that an improvement of the product protection system. So this is conclusions of the whole SymShield program. We know that combinations of multifunctional in combination or in conjunction with other barriers provide more effective product protection systems. So we can optimize the use of multifunctionals when adjusting these kind of parameters. We also know, for example, organic acids provide broad spectrum efficacy, but organic acids are also used less and less. So we really focus on the multifunctional ingredients. So it's really the best solution, or the optimized solution, is always to make a very individual approach, adjusting several parameters of your formulation in order to protect the formula. So we have these multifunctional ingredients ready. They are ready to be combined with several ingredients to optimize the product protection systems. If you have more interest on the ingredients, I'm just showing here that we have a database ready for you. You can just register with your email address. There's nothing else you need. And you have access, in this case, you see to the products, but also we have formulations here offering to you different kinds of formulations where we can see how we formulate with our ingredients, including also the ones that I was showing to you. And on top, we have the HOGO database. The HOGO database is included in our SymSelect portal. And HOGO is the database where we have collected all our challenge test results. So whenever you have a new project, whenever you have a new challenge, either to replace listed preservatives or to reformulate your existing products, please have a look at HOGO. This database provides to you good examples, good ideas. So we have collected all our challenge test results on this database, and it's available for you if you are interested. So please use this platform to improve your formulas. So this was my last slide. This is the full. This is the SymShield program. I wanted to give you a good introduction into our studies. Just to add that the full program is, I think, it would take much longer to present all the details. But if you're interested, please reach out either to our colleagues at Safic, and we can provide to you more information when necessary. So we have agreed that we are sharing the slides with you that I have presented. So it's an extract of the full program. Also, let me say that it's an ongoing program, so we are working on other parameters. So we are expanding a little bit the pH range, for example, because we know we have also formulations like sunscreen formulations, which have a broader pH, which have maybe a pH above 7 even. So we are extending this program. And yeah, so we keep you informed if there's any exciting news. Thank you so much for your attention for the moment, and I'm happy to answer your questions.
Thank you, Bernd. We already have few questions. The first one is, are there further parameters that Symrise is testing with regards to efficacy optimization of its multifunctional ingredients?
Yeah, thank you for this, Agathe. This is, yeah, as I said, we are continuing the program. We are looking into other parameters. What I was showing is active water content, pH, complexing agent, and so on. These parameters are really exciting. So we are testing at the moment more emulsifiers. We are expanding the range of pH a little bit, but also we have new ingredients. And if you have participated one of our recent webinars, maybe you know we have the SafeLight HB. This is another exciting ingredient to protect formulations without using listed preservatives. And also this year, just before in cosmetic, Symrise was launching the Mindera platform. This is a choice of 4 different plant extracts that we use also for the protection of formulations. And we're also working on the fine tuning, so expanding the SymShield program with these ingredients.
Great, thank you, Bernd. We have another question. Can I find such results of SymShield in Symrise HOGO database?
Yes, that's a good point. As I was showing the HOGO database briefly, just the first page. So it's a platform where we really collect all the challenge test results, make them available for you, for customers, to see what can work in emulsions. You can pre-select by pH. You can also pre-select ingredients, approvals, China approval, for example, and so on. You can all pre-select this, and in HOGO, you do find all the results. So what I was showing here is also included in our HOGO database. Yes, please try and have a look.
you. Donc, si vous avez des questions, n'hésitez pas, c'est le moment. We have last one question. Showing the effect of the water activity content on the growth of microorganisms by hydrolyte 5 green. How is the same effect expected by other alkandiols?
Ah, yeah, good, thank you. Yes, I was showing just the hydrolyte 5 green, in this case, the pentylene glycol results, so where we have seen the highest reduction of the measured active water content. However, we have conducted challenge test results, and also for the other alkandiols, we can confirm that there is significant reduction in bacteria, yeast, and mold during a challenge test, but it was also not on the same level like the pentylene glycol. However, we can recommend to use combinations because in the challenge test, I was always showing that it's not providing full protection when using only, for example, the pentylene glycol. You need to combine this with something else. And then again, it's a matter of optimizing both ingredients, yeah, or even 3 ingredients that you could use to protect the formulation. So also the other alkandiols, they have efficacy against bacteria, yeast, and mold, but it's a very individual approach. So it's really recommended to first understand how much protection each formulation needs. And then, of course, it's always a challenge to find the most optimum combination. But again, Hogo can help here. The database can help.
Thank you, Bernd. Donc, s'il n'y a pas d'autres questions, nous allons pouvoir clôturer ce webinaire. Merci à tous pour votre participation. Un grand merci, Bernd, pour cette présentation. Si vous avez d'autres questions, n'hésitez pas à revenir vers votre contact Safic-Alcan privilégié. Et voilà, en follow-up, vous recevrez la présentation ainsi que l'accès au replay. Nous vous donnons rendez-vous le mardi 14 octobre pour un prochain webinaire Symrise qui cette fois sera dédié à l'actif breveté Symrise New HPR, un actif rétinol-like sans effet indésirable. Vous recevrez une invitation prochainement. Donc en attendant, nous vous souhaitons une très bonne journée et nous vous disons à bientôt.
Merci.